30 years ago today, the childhoods of many have forever changed when Pokemon Red and Green released for the Game Boy in Japan. Wait, you think I meant to say Red and Blue? Nah, that wasn't until 98. But anyway, to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Pokemon, I will rank every single Pokemon movie. Not just the anime movies, with the fatherless and never-aging Ash Ketchum, whose entire 1,200 episode journey somehow took place in the span of less than a year. Though they are the majority, we also got one remake of the first movie and one live-action movie. Like the Dragon Ball movies, some of the Pokemon movies really felt more like extended episodes as opposed to actual movies, but regardless, I guess it doesn't really matter. What does matter is I can say with an open heart that I didn't hate any of these movies. Sure, some were weaker than others, but none of them outright pissed me off. So, get your drying pans and jelly-filled donuts ready, because we are about to make the very best ranking like no one ever had. No, I'm gonna make the very best ranking like there never was one. Let's just get to number 24. This will forever be my thoughts on this movie. Look, it's a sweet story about friendship and time travel and shit with Celebi, who is just adorable. And not to mention, I also really like the twist about Sam actually being a young Professor Oak, which ultimately makes this whole experience more impactful as opposed to Sam just being some rando. But my god, the CGI is just so fucking bad. I know I shouldn't insult it too much since this movie came out in 2001, but it doesn't really excuse it. The one instance of CGI Suicune was bad enough, but the whole final act with the Celebi tree monster thing, that was just a visual mess. And there's the villain, Iron Masked Marauder. No, seriously, that's his name. But yeah, he has these things called Dark Balls, which essentially turn Pokemon evil and basically boost them to level 100. Even though, despite that, the evil Tyranitar can still get punted by an Onix. But I have so many questions about these balls. First off, who even makes them? If it's Team Rocket, then why don't they just use them every time they want to catch or steal a Pokemon? And also, do they just have a guaranteed catch rate? Because there's no way Iron Masked Marauder could ever catch Celebi, a mythical Pokemon, with just one ball. And if they do have a guaranteed catch rate, then again, why aren't they mass-produced? But regardless, there isn't really much going on in this movie. The good guys spend most of the movie going on a stroll through the forest. Team Rocket's just there. So I guess Meowth is just wrong in movie 3.
Do you think we're gonna get a bigger part in the next movie?
But as much as I like Celebi, he kinda spent the entire movie getting his ass kicked. And when he's supposed to be the star of the show, it's kinda frustrating to see. Especially when compared to his predecessor, Mew, who in the first movie fought toe-to-toe with Mewtwo. You know, the supposed most powerful Pokemon? Suicune was cool, but to be honest, he didn't really do anything in this movie. And by the time he did something in this movie, it just didn't even work. So like, why was he even here in the first place? But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this. The story was sweet despite its plot holes, but it is quite an eyesore at times. And of course, I did get sad when Celebi was seemingly dead, but other than that, I wasn't really a big fan of this movie. Pokemon Ranger, the game that fucked up the touchscreen on my DS. This movie was fine for the most part. It was weird going into this one fresh off movie 8, mainly because they got new voice actors, which, not gonna lie, didn't really hit as hard as the OG cast, but I won't hold it against them. They did their best. Jack was fine as a character. I liked the relationship between May and Manaphy. Ash fucking died again for a couple seconds. The main villain, Phantom, kinda gives me Wario vibes, just from his design. My main problem with this movie is the fact the whole thing felt like it was just dragged on. Like, we spent a lot of time in this big-ass ship when the bulk of it could have just been like a minute-long montage. This movie isn't unbearable to sit through or anything, but it's like the end of the world in Kingdom Hearts. It just dragged on for way too long. But unlike that big-ass room with a never-ending Heartless, I didn't lose 10 years of my lifespan from this movie. But yeah, I wasn't really feeling this one all that much, not gonna lie. This was when I started to notice a decline in my enjoyment of the Pokemon movies. I don't know if it was just because of burnout or the fact Pokemon simply fell off, but I think I stated my case. Also, this movie had too much water. And now for the first Gen 6 movie. It's alright, I guess. I mean, this movie has its positives, like for example, Team Rocket was actually successful for once, albeit temporarily. Diance's arc was fine, and the final act with Yveltal going around literally killing everyone in his path was fine as well. It was also a neat change of pace to have Pikachu get killed off for a few seconds instead of Ash. though it's not really as funny. But overall, this movie's just fine at the end of the day. I didn't hate it or love it, but yeah, it's just whatever. I got nothing else to say. It's one of the Pokemon movies of all time. Alright, let's move on. And now for the movie titled 2000, despite the fact it came out in 1999. I guess type matchups aren't the only thing they can't get right. But yeah, to be honest, this one was kinda mid. The story doesn't really make much sense. Like, there's this ritual thing where a dude named Ash, like, specifically named Ash, has to collect 3 balls from the islands to save the world. But since this is a regular thing, does that mean these birds are wreaking havoc on a yearly basis? And is it always some guy named Ash who stops it while Lugia chokes the chickens? What if a guy named Ash never shows up? Is the world just fucked then? What are the rules, damn it? And also, I didn't really understand the whole relationship between the legendary birds. Like, one second they're breaking each other free from the ship, then the next second they're all trying to murder each other, as well as anyone who interferes, then all of a sudden they're chill again. And also, the one and only fight scene in this movie wasn't really all that great. It's just birds screaming and spamming blasts, which got old relatively quickly. Though we did get this legendary quote, which I feel still holds up today.
Listen to me, kid. When you get involved with the opposite sex, you're only asking for trouble.
But yeah, other than that, I don't really got much to say about this one. The Talking Slowking is a chill guy. Team Rocket actually had something to do, which isn't something I can say for a lot of these movies. Speaking of, Misty did nothing this entire movie except for one thing towards the end, and has the nerve to say Ash isn't alone and has her. Overall, I just do not care for this one. I know a lot of people really liked The Power of One, but unfortunately I wasn't really digging this one. And now for the third time a movie was made to hype up the next Pokemon generation. This movie was fine. I mean, I liked the whole thing with Zorua and Zoroark, and the villain was pretty threatening too. Speaking of, if I had a nickel every time a character in Pokemon was played by Sean Schemmel, the voice of Goku, I would have 2 nickels. You know the joke. I made that one like 1 billion times. But I gotta say, how the hell didn't he die from fall damage? I mean, sure, I guess I could buy him having future visions like Bardock, but I swear, the people in the Pokemon anime are just not human. I mean, how else could this girl hug a Magcargo? But back to topic, I don't really have much to say about this one. We got the legendary dog trio, but they're shiny forms for some reason. But yeah, other than that, this movie was generally an inoffensive experience. And now for the last movie before they decided to go alternate timeline for some reason. But yeah, this was another average movie. There's a cute little relationship between Volcanion and Magearna, which I'd say is a better love story than Twilight. But then again, saying that is like saying Pikachu is yellow. But yeah, not much is to be said about this one. It's a solid story. I liked Volcanion's character arc, as well as his banter with Ash. The final battle was goated with peak animation. It's just a solid movie overall. I know a lot of people have a hate boner for this one, but to be honest, it wasn't really that bad. Was it a commercial to hype up Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire? Maybe. But hey, if we get to see a bunch of legendary Pokemon beat the shit out of each other in a city, Godzilla style, then I can look past the whole commercial aspect. But I also like how out of all the legendary Pokemon that were summoned, Groudon is the only one that can't fly. I don't know why I find that so funny. You'd think he'd do what Godzilla did in his fight against Hedorah and use his mouth beam to fly. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time Pokemon took notes from the radioactive dinosaur franchise. But yeah, there's not really much going on story-wise, just a big bad Hoopa who constantly gets sealed away, and the good Hoopa stops him and eats donuts. Yeah, other than that, this movie is relatively average. Though it was cool to see Rayquaza taking on the fucking creation trio. You know, the literal concepts of space, time, and antimatter themselves. Still a Donald Duck victim. I mean, come on, if Bahamut can't beat him, neither can Rayquaza. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, now for Pokemon Satan, as the fans put it. First things first, I gotta say, I really like how they connected this one to the Dialga and Palkia fight in Rise of Darkrai. But the problem is, it didn't really do that much with that connection. Like, we see Dialga get into a tango with Giratina in the beginning, then we just never see the former again for the rest of the movie. That aside, I don't really have much to say about this one. And all in all, nothing really stood out to me. Shaman was fine for the most part, and I did like the reverse world as a setting, and alright, that's kinda it. Let's just move on. Finally, a good fucking live-action adaptation. I never would have thought Pokemon in live action would work, but here we are. Okay, some of the Pokemon do look hideous. I mean, look at Gengar. But at the same time, we get a badass looking Charizard and an adorable Pikachu who's the star of the show. Actually, no, I lied. That's Ryan Reynolds. We got Deadpool in a Pokemon movie before GTA 6. But yeah, this movie was solid enough. I liked the relationship between Tim and Harry, and of course I liked the twists after twist style they were going for. The fight scenes, while they were a dream come true in Kid Me's fantasies, they didn't really stand out in the long run. And all in all, I don't have much to say about this one. It's just a solid and fun experience overall. Apparently people really hated this one. To that I gotta ask, did we watch the same movie? Now look, this movie is clearly not my favorite one. I mean, it's at the number 15 spot. But it was solid nonetheless. I like the whole Mewtwo and Genesect relationship, with them both being man-made Pokemon, and having them interact with each other, you know, with that connection, it's just straight up genius. Though I'm not really a fan of Mewtwo's new voice.
I want to challenge the boundaries of my power. I'll go on ahead. Beyond the limit.
Congrats on our transition though. Yeah, the whole Mega Mewtwo Y versus Red Genesect fight scene was just peak. The story itself is fine overall, but it did leave a lot of questions unanswered. For example, why out of all the Genesects is the shiny one the big mafioso? Why is that one sad Genesect the only one that wasn't just on site like the other ones were at first? Are there just 2 Mewtwo's now? And lastly, why is Mewtwo able to Mega Evolve on its own? I think I got my point across. Again, it's solid overall, and I don't really get the hate towards it. And now we get to the coolest dragon around. Ahem. This movie was short and sweet, with not really that much padding whatsoever, but to be honest, this felt more like a long episode than a full-fledged movie. Team Rocket did nothing. I don't mean like how in most of the other movies they're just doing their own thing, but are just irrelevant to the plot overall. I mean, they literally had nothing to do, which, to be honest, is a nice change of pace. Speaking of a change of pace, I liked how this time around the main antagonist is just another Pokemon, as opposed to another bad human guy who wants to steal shit. And I also really liked Keldeo's arc throughout the movie. This whole movie was essentially a split-up fight between Keldeo and Kyurem, with the occasional flashback. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have much to say about this one. It was just an enjoyable experience that just flew right on by. I decided to put both of these in the spot since it's literally the same fucking movie, just with some minor switcheroos. You know, just like with the games! But anyway, this might be a hot take, but this movie was pretty solid. I especially liked the lore, which to be honest, might be the exact reason why Gen 5 is my second favorite Pokemon generation. I believe number 1 is obvious. But yeah, this has a lot of things going for it, one of which being the Reshiram and Zekrom fight scene, and of course the star of the show, Victini. And I also really liked how Damon wasn't a borderline super mean evil guy like most of the villains in the past movies, but rather a misguided dude who genuinely thought he was doing a good thing. But my main problem with this is, why did they make 2 movies? No one wants to watch 2 movies that are literally the same, not unless you're some schmuck who's on a Pokemon Watchathon in order to make a ranking video on YouTube. What a loser, am I right? But yeah, Ash dies again, and we all know Victini wasn't gonna die, because they never kill off the cute and wholesome Pokemon. It's only the badass ones that get that fate. Alright, now for movie 10. This was actually pretty solid for the most part. This movie can be summarized by this. Big scary nightmares and big scary gods of space and time who were never supposed to meet fighting so hard Alamos Town gets Hokkai'd. But in all seriousness, I really liked Darkerai's whole misunderstood anti-hero arc, and not to mention, he's got to be one of the most badass Pokemon ever.
This garden is everyone's!
Bros fighting the literal concepts of space and time, all because a girl who liked flowers helped them out generations beforehand. I mean, sure, he got his ass kicked, but at least he tried. But to be honest, Darkrai with legs is just so cursed to me, I don't know why. But moving on from that, the whole sequence with the Pokemon getting banished to the Shadow Realm via nightmares was solid enough, and the same goes for the final act despite it being Dialga and Palkia simply spamming blasts and tackling each other. Other than that, I don't really have much to say. It's a simple but solid story with a good character arc, but nothing that got me bouncing around and throwing my popcorn like people did during the chicken jockey scene in the Minecraft movie. Alright, I don't have a pun for this one sadly, so yeah, Pokemon Heroes. It was alright. I like the brother-sister relationship between Latios and Latias. Unlike Forever, the CGI actually looks decent. We had a pretty cool chase scene with Aerodactyl. We got the first official Pokemon death in the series, and by death, I don't mean just until they come back like 5 minutes later, I mean actually dead. And now that Father Latios and Brother Latios are dead, that means there are no more Latioses, which means there's no way any trainer would just pull up with a blue airplane Pokemon. Okay, wait a minute, how the fuck does Tobias have a Latios? Seriously, what the hell is this? Also, Ash gets smooched by a Pokemon. Because, why not? You might think that's weird, but there's no laws against the Pokemon, Batman. But yeah, I don't have much to say about this one. There aren't any battles in this one, but again, we did get some good action sequences, and all in all, it was a pretty solid story. You probably wished for my thoughts on this movie, and now your wish has been granted. It was solid enough, though my personal favorite moment was this right here.
Jirachi, get rid of the problem! Get rid of problem? Okay.
And that is why Jirachi will always be based. Speaking of Jirachi, I liked his relationship with Max, as well as a bunch of other things. I like the little recap they did in the beginning with the legendaries in the previous movies, though they will repeat that in like many of the other ones, and that's when that stopped standing out to me. There's also my goat Flygon, who can't seem to get a fucking Mega Evolution because Game Freak hates him. And there's the Groudon, which is not really Groudon, but rather a Kaiju Groudon that absorbs people.
I found you, faker!
The fight scenes didn't stand out, but they were solid enough. The final act was an elongated fight scene with Flygon and Salamence dodging not Groudon's Vine Whip Absorb combo. But yeah, I do have one problem with this movie. Mudkip got no attention whatsoever, so fuck you, Pokemon Movie 06 Jirachi Wishmaker. And now we get to the final addition to the Sinnoh trilogy, and we wrap it up with literal Pokemon God himself. I gotta say, this movie can be summarized by this clip.
Holy crap, here comes Jesus, and he doesn't look too happy.
But yeah, I like how this is a time travel movie, without the whole convoluted shit we see in 99% of time travel stories. And not gonna lie, I really like the setting of this movie. I mean, seeing the Pokemon world in the past is something I greatly enjoy. Though not gonna lie, I was not expecting that kind of voice for Arceus.
Are you siding with the humans?
Seriously, I haven't been this shocked by anything in voice acting since I saw Death in the Netflix Castlevania show, speaking like a Gen Z shitposter on social media. But anyway, I don't really have much to say about this one. The fight scenes weren't super noteworthy, but they were solid nonetheless. The story was enjoyable, Ash almost got erased from existence, and all in all, it was a pretty solid movie overall. And now it's time for my thoughts on this movie to no longer be unknown. Spell of the Unknown was pretty good. Though I gotta say, the CGI Unknown wasn't really on my bingo card. And neither was Entei being a father that would get the milk and actually come back with it, as well as hypnotize a random person into being a family member, because why not?
You are Mama.
Man, I already know there's a lot of people that would just love to call Entei daddy, but unlike you degenerates, Molly actually sees Entei as her father, and Delia as her mother. Say, what if down the road she asks them for a little sibling? Would that imply... No, I'm not even gonna say it. I think the Deviants already have enough material from this movie, just from the Pokemon alone. I really loved the fight scene between Charizard and Entei, and while I'm on there, I gotta say the whole final act was just peak. The visuals were pretty, Meowth is somehow aware of the fourth wall, this movie made me forget Unknown are actually fucking useless, and all in all, this is the first Pokemon movie that actually feels like a movie. Now what would you do if you had access to a bunch of Unknown? I could just go to Pokemon HQ and pitch my idea for a Pokemon game where the only Pokemon that exist are Mudkip and its evolutions. No other Pokemon, just Mudkip. And now for the latest movie. You know, as perfect sense as this concept would make, I never thought about a Tarzan Pokemon movie before. While I believe this one is the weakest in the modern era, wait, is it really modern? This movie came out like 6 years ago. But regardless of how you take it, I enjoyed it nonetheless. I mean, we got a bunch of big monkeys. What's there not to like? I like the whole dynamic with Coco and Daddy Zarude. Ash didn't play as big of a role in this movie as he usually does, but that's okay since it's in favor of giving Coco a chance to shine. There is also a twist villain trope, which I think was done right, but goddamn, actually seeing Zed kill Coco's parents was pretty intense. Kinda dark for a kid's movie, don't you think? This is the same franchise that in lore had a Typhlosion kidnap and impregnate a child. Wait, what the fuck? Okay, I'm choosing Totodile from now on. But yeah, other than that, that's kind of all I have to say. But I really like the whole thing with the Zarude, and how they're like their whole tribes. Actually, now that I'm on topic, just who played the Zarude? Bill Butts! Alright, let's just get a move on. It is my destiny to go on marathons like this, and I will fulfill them. Destiny Deoxys is a very goated movie. And no, it's not just because my boy Mudkip gets some screen time. Most of this movie can be summarized by, let's take these powerful monsters and just have them beat the shit out of each other in a big ass city and see what happens. That is just absolute cinema. I mean, why do you think I'm a Godzilla fan? But the whole plot started 4 years prior, where we got the most disrespectful finishing move possible, with a point-blank hyper beam. I think he got him. But anyway, it's not just the fight scenes that were goated. It had a pretty solid story going for it. I really liked Tori's character arc. I like the concept of these guys being trapped in a city with the Deoxys clones kidnapping people, as well as the whole futuristic security system going AWOL in the end. And all in all, it was a pretty enjoyable experience. As the title implies, the power of friendship is a key factor in this movie, but this time around, it was done excellently. There aren't a lot of fight scenes in this one, but the few there were had some of the best animation I've ever seen in the franchise. This movie breaks the formula most of the movies follow, you know, with the talking mythical Pokemon, big legendaries beating the shit out of each other, and Ash dying, which is a nice change of pace. And speaking of Ash, he kinda takes a backseat in this one in order to give the new characters a chance to shine, which I think was the best way to handle it. And there are a lot of new characters, each with their own satisfying arcs that all correlate into the final act without feeling forced. Even Zeraora had a cool arc about learning not all humans are pieces of shit. Kinda cliche, sure, but still more than the games did with him. But yeah, this was just a good experience overall with peak animation. I can't imagine how good the animation would be had they continued making movies, but we may never know. Unless in today's Pokemon Presents they announce a new movie, which, to be honest, would already make this video outdated, so I'm not sure I would really want that or not. And now we got the remake of the first movie, and I gotta say, I low-key didn't know this one existed until just recently. I think I remember seeing a thumbnail for a trailer a while back, but I brushed it off as one of those clickbait fan-made trailers. But yeah, I'm not going to go in depth with this one, because as I was writing the script, I already did so with the OG movie later on in this list, and I feel it would be more generous to leave it with that one, considering, in my opinion, the OG hits a lot harder than this one. Though this one does have its advantages, one of the main ones being the 3D animated fight scenes go much harder than the 2D animated ones. But like, the only criticism I got for this movie is the character models. I mean, the Pokemon look cool, but the humans? They look weird. Could they have just taken inspiration from the video game models? Alright, I'm gonna give a more in-depth analysis right about... And now for the first Pokemon movie. The first movie. Well, Mewtwo's name isn't exactly creative, so I guess it's fitting the title of this movie isn't all that creative either. But yeah, this movie has a relatively dark tone. Forcing animals to fight each other to the death, a child fucking dies, and of course, Mewtwo's origin story is pretty depressing. I mean, befriending a girl just to watch her die in front of you and spend a lot of time dormant in a tube is enough to make anyone hate humanity, only for someone to eventually convince you humans aren't so bad after all. Wait a minute, this is just the origin story for Shadow the Hedgehog. But anyway, that scene where the real deal Pokemon and the clones were fighting was pretty hard to watch. Except for the fight with the Charizards in the sky and the Mews clashing with each other. Those were pretty badass. But other than that, I don't really have much to say about this one. It's a certified hood classic. Yes, the visuals are dated, but what's not dated is the legendary quote by Meowth.
Maybe if we started looking at what's the same, instead of always looking at what's different, well, who knows?
Speaking of quotes, Jay Good is just the definitive voice for Mewtwo. I don't care what you say. The other voice actors Mewtwo had are fine, but I'm sorry. Deep voice male Mewtwo is the way to go. I mean, just listen.
I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are.
Damn, was this movie written by philosophers or what? Maybe I'm a bit biased towards this one because Mewtwo is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, but even if you say that, you can't deny this one is very iconic and well written. Remember Dragon Ball: A Path to Power? Well, I Choose You is basically that. Though Misty and Brock are replaced by Verity and Sorel, which... why? I mean, they're fine as characters, don't get me wrong, but also... why? But anyway, it's a nice reimagining of the beginning of the anime, with top-notch fight scenes with peak animation, especially for the fights against Cross, and also plenty of emotional moments both new and old. Like, god damn it, did we really need to see Ash release his Butterfree again? I mean, it's bad enough we had to see a Luxray freeze to death, and an abandoned Charmander left to die in the rain, and later on seeing Ash die with Pikachu speaking English. But then again, that last one was fine since Ash only got banished to the Shadow Realm for a bit. There was also the scene where Ash dreams about a world without Pokemon and the whole world just fucking sucks. Just like ours. Man, if only Pokemon were real, am I right? But yeah, this movie may be nostalgia bait, but this is one of the instances where we actually get something good out of nostalgia bait. I mean, hey, this movie actually did something with Marshadow unlike the games, so that's gotta count for something, right? And now for the movie that, without mystery, is the main reason why Lucario is a fan favorite. Well, that or the fact he's literally Pokemon Goku. This is basically a Fire Emblem plot where we get to see this flashback of a medieval war between Pokemon, which honestly I think would be interesting to see more of in the Pokemon franchise. But regardless, Lucario spent hundreds of years in the Shadow Realm, only to be awakened by Ash, who conveniently has the same aura as Lucario's former master, Sir Aaron. Was the reasoning for that ever explained, or was this just entirely coincidental? But anyway, I think it goes without saying I like this movie a lot. It made me appreciate Lucario more as a character than I already did, and overall, I really liked his arc in this movie. Shame he had to pull a Latios and die. Quick, someone grab the Dragon Balls. We can save him. Wait, wrong anime. Speaking of dying, there's a lot of death in this movie. Not even our hero was saved from this one, and Pokemon tears don't seem to be cutting it this time. Oh my god, they killed Ash!
You bastard!
But it's okay, only one of the deaths in this movie was permanent. And there's these time flowers, which there's not really any explanation where they came from. But regardless, they were there and helped the plot go forward. And oh yeah, Mew made a comeback in this movie. It's probably looking at Ash like, why does this stupid kid keep fucking dying? But regardless, like Celebi and Jirachi, Mew was adorable. There weren't really any fight scenes in this movie outside of Lucario using Aura Sphere to blind the Reggie trio, and as usual, the beginning sequence. That's okay. This movie makes up for it with its beautiful story, and again, Lucario's arc is peak. But little would we know, 20 years later, this man would get a second Mega Form that this time around looks like Hatsune Miku, and cuck my boy Flygon out of a fucking Mega Evolution. Now with this ranking all said and done, I gotta say one last thing. When the fuck are we getting another movie? It's been 6 years for Pete's sake. But with all that said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would like to say thank you all for 500 subscribers. If you want to help support me even further, first off, like, comment, subscribe, follow my socials, etc, etc, but also, feel free to binge something on my channel. Have something play while you clean your room or whatever. We gotta get up to 3,000 public watch hours. From there, I'll have to figure out something we can do for memberships. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say, so I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya, chump!